that we actually saw do really well in the middle of the season. He did win the seniors division at the Oceania International Championships. Ryota, I'm really excited because he's using his favorite Mega Evolution, Mega Gardevoir, and Gastron as well. A lot of these Pokemon we haven't seen too much of, specifically the Gardevoir and the Gastron. You know, Rotom Heat did win the North American International Championships, and I think the dynamic of this matchup is really interesting. Azumarill would be really good for Agustin, but he has to worry about that Gastron because it's able to redirect all those water-type attacks away. And, you know, with Sand, you can just hit really, really hard. Specifically, Excadrill, it's able to outspeed and kind of just get these super effective attacks off, especially against Incineroar and Gardevoir. And there's also redirection here on Augustin's side. So, yeah, two pretty offensive teams here. A lot of Intimidate going back and forth as well. And I'm excited to see how this one plays out.
All right, well, here we go. It is Game 1, Day 1 of the Pokemon Video Game World Championships. All the possibilities before these trainers, selecting their 4 Pokemon that they're going to bring to this first match and set the tone for the rest of the weekend. Looks like Agustin is going to go ahead and lead off with his Salamence and Excadrill, getting the Intimidate off onto Ryota's Landorus Therian form. Ryota also leading with the Landorus and Gardevoir. So Landorus going to be able to get the big Intimidates off onto both the Excadrill and the Salamence. Looks like does get the Trace. Gets the Trace Intimidate, so that's 2 Intimidates on Ryota's side. And that's going to make both of those physical attackers on Agustin's side very, very, very unhappy.
Yeah, Gardevoir with the Trace instantly paying dividends right from the start of this game.
It's a world champion intimidation.
It is, yeah. Salamence, you know, doesn't really like this matchup too much. You have to worry about potential Hidden Power Ices from Special Landers, which we actually saw a ton of at the North American International Championships. Gardevoir also hits it for super effective. Because Excadrill isn't in the sand, it isn't able to necessarily outspeed and just knock out that Gardevoir, and especially not after those
2 Intimidates.
Exactly. So I think Agustin here is probably going to want to consider switching out. And it looks like we are going to see the Excadrill swap out.
Yeah, Excadrill has to retreat from this position. Can't stick around with 2 Intimidates without Sand. Going to retreat for the Thundurus Therian form while Mega Evolving his Salamence. So going to go ahead and get those stat boosts onto Mega Salamence while switching in the Thundurus on his own side. Ryota will be matching the Mega Evolution on the Salamence with a Mega Evolution of his own. Like you mentioned, his favorite Mega Pokemon, the Mega Gardevoir, now out on the field, staring down both the Salamence and the Thundurus. Salamence gets a big Hyper Voice off onto both the Gardevoir and Landorus with some good damage, but Gardevoir's Hyper Voice is way louder and stronger, actually picking up the KO onto Salamence.
Big attack there. We are going to see the Z move, so that looks like Tectonic Rage coming out from Landorus. So
yeah, there are no targets for that Tectonic Rage on Agustin's side.
Great switch in there by Thundurus, but Ryota's lead was so good that he was able to basically get a knockout and a half. And I think that's still a fine turn on Ryota's end. He was basically playing it pretty safe. It was pretty interesting to note, though, that the Gardevoir was actually faster than the Landorus there.
Yeah.
That's something that we don't see necessarily all the time. And once again, Excadrill is out here without the Sand, so it still doesn't have that speed boost. Landorus here could consider maybe swapping out and back in. You do have to worry about potential Hidden Power Ices from Thundurus. Of course, this is the variant form as well, which is typically the more offensive variant. Wants to be able to sweep through things and often does carry that Hidden Power Ice specifically to hit Landorus.
Crucially, though, this Excadrill no longer has the Intimidate debuffs on it, so we'll be able to hit for full damage onto either of Ryota's Pokemon should it be allowed to get a turn off here. Looks like Ryota is switching out.
And that makes a lot of sense, right? Because you probably assume there's a potential Tyranitar in the back, and Incineroar is an excellent switching here, getting the Intimidate off immediately. Also, it's highly unlikely that you're going to launch a Ground-type attack into that Landorus.
Yeah, love to see that Incineroar switch in, get another Intimidate off, while Gardevoir just protects itself from damage coming from Agustin's side. We'll be taking a little bit of damage from the Thundurus on Agustin's side. Not very effective damage, taking the Life Orb damage, while Excadrill just going to go ahead and keep boosting itself with a Swords Dance. So Excadrill is very scary at +1 now after the Intimidate. Does have to worry about Fake Out pressure and still does not have the Sand up to give it the speed boost that it needs.
Yeah, I like that play pretty... it was a pretty good play, I think, from both ends there, where Ryota played it really safe. It was very unlikely he was going to lose the Incineroar on the switch in there, but Agustin at least turning the tides a little bit by getting that Swords Dance off. He's already so far behind in this game where he really needs to be able to claw himself back. But the thing is, Ryota has 2 Intimidators, so he can just keep cycling back and forth.
There it is.
Get rid of all these boosts. And Incineroar right now also just threatens with damage on both of these.
Yeah, Landorus switching back in to get rid of the Swords Dance boost from Augustine's Excadrill. Will also be taking a fake out in the face for its efforts. And a taunt comes out from Thundurus, just going to taunt the Landorus on the switch in, hoping to catch the Gardevoir with the taunt, but no damage dealt on Augustine's side, and really good usage of switching in those Intimidators to keep that Excadrill from getting too scary on Ryota's side.
Yeah, you know, Ryota had a really great lead, and he's basically been matching Augustine's plays the last couple of turns. He's been playing really safe, but there's no need to play aggressive when you have such a good lead matchup, and the first turn goes nearly perfectly. So the taunt there does stop potential Trick Room, and that's definitely something you have to worry about from Mega Gardevoir. Ryota, however, making a great switch out, and he's actually going to keep cycling in the Intimidates right now.
Yeah, just keeping those Intimidates cycling, and Gastrodon makes its World Championships debut for 2018. Just another Protect coming out from Ryota, while the hidden power from that Thundurus again into what used to be the Landorus, dealing neutral damage to the Gastrodon this time, and still taking more damage from that Life Orb. Here comes the Tectonic Rage, though, from Excadrill. Augustine is sick and tired of just having the Excadrill be fake-outed and intimidated, and just wants to get some damage off.
Great Protect there from the Incineroar. Not all Incineroars often carry Protect because you want to fit in a lot of different moves. Obviously, Fake Out, Flare Blitz, U-Turn, and sometimes we often see the Assault Vest variant. So still takes a ton of damage there, but the cycling of Intimidates have made it so Excadrill is doing significantly less. And of course, Thundurus is also kind of on a timer because it's taking so much Life Orb recoil every turn.
Yeah.
So, you know, Ryota hasn't really been able to get too much damage off these last couple of turns, but he's basically been able to position himself into a much better spot. And, you know, one thing you sometimes have to worry about from Thundurus is a potential Grass Knot, but we've seen Hidden Power, we've seen Taunts, most likely Thunderbolt and Protect with the Life Orb variant. So this Gastrodon probably pretty safe right now. Really nice switch in, and a great Pokemon to bring into this matchup.
Yeah, interesting positioning here, because with the chip damage from the Tectonic Rage onto Incineroar, you know, Excadrill loves being paired alongside that flying-type Thundurus. Could be able to just fire off some Earthquakes here, but instead going to retreat in favor of Tyranitar. So Augustine really making sure that he's going to be able to get into a position where he has Sand up and Excadrill is still healthy. Another hidden power coming out from the Thundurus into the Incineroar, hoping to catch a Landorus on the switch in. Not going to be enough. Gets a knockout, actually. The Sand would have picked it up too, but Incineroar wants to finish that off after all those hidden powers. And Gastrodon now able to go for an Earth Power onto the Excadrill slot. Deals a little under 50% damage to that Tyranitar, and the Sand just enough damage to proc that berry.
Yeah, that Hidden Power Ice, obviously trying to fish for a Lander switch and being able to get that would actually be really big, but now Ryota is able to still cycle in the Intimidators. Every turn he can switch out and back in. I think right now if Augustine wants a chance of winning, he does finally have like the Excadrill out in Sand. It is able to outspeed everything. It's just like if it gets intimidated too much, it's just not going to be able to do enough damage. So for him, you have to make an important decision. When do you go for the Sword Stance, or do you just go for attacks left and right? Because right now you have to worry about so many super effective hits, right? Flare Blitz from the Incineroar. We saw the Earth Power come out just now from the Gastrodon as well. Another thing I'm curious about is the Gastrodon's item. If it is like those 50% berries, it's going to be a lot more difficult to take care of. So Ryota right now, even though he is up 4-2, the game isn't necessarily over. Augustine can still definitely pull this back because Excadrill is really strong against Ryota's team, and he's gotten a lot of damage off, but he really has to target correctly with the Excadrill.
And really going to need to fish for a KO onto that Landorus. Otherwise, Excadrill is just going to find itself walled by Landorus. Here's the switch in. Actually going to bring the Landorus out to get another Intimidate off onto both the Tyranitar and the Excadrill. Really high value Intimidate there. It looks like an Iron Head into the Gastrodon, just dealing a little bit of damage. No boosts, just damage. And the Assurance coming out from Tyranitar, not able to pick up the KO, but will activate Gastrodon's Berry, like you mentioned, able to heal up all of that damage again.
The Icy Wind coming out too, which is a pretty cool tech move. Will lower the speeds of both of these Pokemon, but once again, like the thing is, when you have such a big lead like Ryota does, your opponent basically has to play perfectly every turn. It's with a team like Excadrill Tyranitar, you really want to be able to get knockouts immediately. So the fact that Agustin wasn't able to get a knockout that last turn, the fact that Landorus is able to come in for free and get that Intimidate goes a long way. Now Landorus can just swap back out into Incineroar. Excadrill didn't go for a Swords Dance when it had the possibility to. So its damage output is just significantly reduced, and this Gastrodon should be able to just get another free attack off this turn. Seeing how it survived the combination last turn, even if
more intimidates.
Right, exactly.
And you could even see, sort of how far behind Agustin was after the start of this match, as he just tried to keep fishing for hidden powers onto the Landorus for switch-ins. He kept trying to predict switch-ins for Landorus. Ryota playing a little bit ahead, playing much safer, dealing no damage with that assurance, but Ryota feeling very safe, very comfortable, not able to pick up the KO onto Tyranitar with that Earth Power, just a sliver of health left. But in command this entire game one, and Agustin's gonna need to get some more momentum, gonna need to pick up some KOs early and not let Ryota take control of the match in game two.
Yeah, Ryota's in a really good spot now. Excadrill did get the boost, but perhaps one turn too late.
Yeah.
And because Agustin wasn't able to knock out any Intimidators at any point, like you mentioned, Ryota can just keep cycling back and forth. You probably just fake out the Tyranitar here. Actually targets on the Excadrill, but looks like Tyranitar isn't really going to be able to do much more damage throughout. It's intimidated, keeps on going for insurance, makes me think maybe it actually is using the Choice Scarf, which we often see on these teams.
Yeah,
and
that's no damage.
Yeah.
The Excadrill probably way more threatening than that Tyranitar at this point, after all those intimidates and just not able to do the damage on Agustin's side. And it's a really tough game one to face, but when you're at the World Championships, you may just get matched up against the defending world champion round one, and these are the kind of games you got to be ready for.
Yeah, I think Agustin's team really would like to use the Zoom as well, but it's so hard to bring into a matchup where Ryota is almost guaranteed to bring that Gastrodon. So just the threat of Gastrodon itself and its ability means that even if you set up with the Zoom it still can't really attack freely every turn. So we should see Ryota take this game one pretty comfortably, and I do think that lead matchup just was so good there. Agustin just didn't get enough out of that Salamence, took so much damage, and Ryota just had to make safe plays afterwards to really close out the game.
Oh, wow. That deals no damage after all those intimidates. Excadrill just not scaring anyone right now. Ryota picks up the KO with a critical hit for good measure. Takes game one, and we'll be heading to game two in a commanding position.
Yeah, excellent game there from Ryota. I think the team he has does match up pretty nicely, but he also led well and played very, very safely. He didn't go for any unnecessary or risky plays, and there's no reason to when you have such a big lead like he did in that first game.
Yeah, he played so safely after getting the early KOs after the Mega Gardevoir picked up the KO with its Hyper Voice. A team like Ryota's, really wants to get that early advantage, and then he's a player of such high caliber that he won't make mistakes. And once you're in that kind of deficit, Agustin was really fishing, hoping for a mistake, hoping for a risky switch-in of the Landorus or leaving Landorus out vulnerable against that Thundurus, and Ryota just didn't give him the opportunity.
Yeah, I think in terms of adjustments, if you're Agustin, maybe you just consider going with Tyranitar and Excadrill right from the get-go. One of the main issues in that last game was that the sand wasn't set up until towards the end of the game.
At the very end.
And then by that point, Excadrill already just wasn't able to do enough, and then suddenly, you've already lost so many resources where you really can't do much more afterwards. So maybe Tyranitar, Excadrill. I think the main fear is obviously you have to worry about two Intimidators, and we saw the Landorus immediately, and Landorus is such a safe lead here for the most part against Agustin's team. But the Gardevoir was just so strong, at least with Tyranitar, Excadrill, you threaten the Gardevoir maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, the Gardevoir being able to Mega Evolve and fire off Hyper Voices for free after turn one was just huge for Ryota. Being able to get that damage off early really sets him up in a strong position. And I totally agree with you. Getting that sand up early seems like the best way for Agustin to be able to start making some moves of his own. Otherwise, he's just sort of playing on the back foot, hoping he's going to be able to get into a position where Excadrill has a speed boost.
Yeah, I think Pokemon choice-wise here, there's not too many adjustments Ryota really should make. Maybe in terms of leads, you could think about it, but Tapu Koko is really not a Pokemon you're going to be bringing into this matchup whatsoever. Rotom Heat, also really not that great when you're staring up against the Tyranitar and Excadrill and a Thundurus Therian form. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Ryota go with the same Pokemon. I think his matchup here is pretty strong. He didn't even need to play overly aggressive in that first game, and he was able to win pretty comfortably.
All right, well, we are going into game two now. Ryota Otsubo, the defending world champion, has a 1-0 lead over Agustin De Cicco from Argentina. It will be the Landorus and Gardevoir leads again from Ryota, and it will be Thundurus and Salamence for Augustine.
Yeah, this time around, it feels like Gardevoir is still in a really good spot, unless you
still not super threatened.
Right, unless you can double up into the Gardevoir, maybe with the double edge on a Thunderbolt, but still, Gardevoir here free to launch Hyper Voices, and with that Intimidate, I'm almost sure Gardevoir will survive a double up from Salamence and Thundurus. So for Ryota, I feel like this play, you can either switch out the Landorus or go for a Protect. Probably don't want to keep the Landorus in because it's really important in this matchup, and it's absolutely essential to dealing with that Excadrill and potentially Tyranitar in the back. Gardevoir here probably can just launch a Hyper Voice if it wants to. So I think once again the lead here puts Augustine in kind of a tricky position where Thundurus, does threaten out the Landorus, but then Landorus can just swap out. So I think Augustine here maybe it needs to go for a prediction or two. And if he doesn't, I think he'll just honestly be kind of behind Thundercar.
And we saw Augustine was willing to make those predictions to go for those plays after he fell into that deficit in Game 1. So definitely has it in him to make something happen here. Landorus Therian form actually going to retreat on Ryota's side for Incineroar again, just making sure to keep cycling those Intimidates onto the Salamence. Not going to have much of an impact on the Thundurus, but more Intimidates onto Salamence means that any Mega Evolution here, any Hyper Voice coming out, not going to be, or any kind of attack coming out from Salamence, not necessarily going to be super powerful.
Yeah, and once again for Ryota, there's very little reason to stay in with that Landorus because of how it's threatened by that Hidden Power Ice. So really great switch out there. I'd be curious to see if maybe Augustine did predict this and went for a Thunderbolt into the Incineroar Star. Maybe he's just hoping a double up knocks out this Gardevoir with the Life Orb Thunderbolt, because if not, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. Yeah,
fortunately, Mega Salamence loving those special attacking moves, but not going to be able to pick up the KO onto Gardevoir, and Gardevoir firing back with its Hyper Voice right back, picking up the KO again. A real mirror image of Game 1.
Yeah, this time Gardevoir does take a little bit more damage, but once again, the cycling of Intimidates on Ryota's end just makes Augustine's life a lot more harder, where you can just swap out Landorus. And the other thing is you can't get Tyranitar and Excadrill at the same time. If Augustine was able to do that right now, this would actually maybe potentially be a pretty good turn, where you maybe go for a Rock Slide with the Tyranitar, maybe go for a Swords Dance potentially with Excadrill. But the main issue is Excadrill really, really wants a Swords Dance in this matchup, and it's just so hard to get one off because of the threat of Flare Blitz from Incineroar, because of the Gastrodon, because of Landorus. It has to be in a position where it could potentially get a free one up, and it's just really hard to pull that off. We are going to see it come out, but once again, does not have the sand.
No sand, but Excadrill out on the field now. Did not take an Intimidate, so is free for this turn. You have to imagine Augustine has to be thinking of a way to get that Thundurus off the field for Tyranitar, but safely as much as possible. You know, Gardevoir is at much lower health here, so much more vulnerable. Could be able to pick up that KO and with some chip damage from something like an Earthquake.
This is a pretty big turn. You know, does Ryota go for just a Flare Blitz into the Excadrill, or does he decide to swap out into a Landorus? Because if Augustine predicts to swap out into Landorus, he could potentially go for a Swords Dance here with the Excadrill, maybe even a Hidden Power Ice into that slot. So let's see. Nope.
Just a fake out. Just a fake out.
Actually, yeah, that's probably the better play there.
Yeah, no damage being dealt by the Thundurus. Will take the KO with the Hyper Voice on Mega Gardevoir. Excadrill not taking much damage from that as well. So Thundurus will go down. Excadrill now able to Earthquake away at both the Incineroar and the Mega Gardevoir. Picks up both KOs. So now it will be the final two Pokemon from Augustine and from Ryota. Have to imagine that's the Tyranitar for Augustine, and possibly the Gastrodon and Landorus again from Ryota.
Yeah, so Ryota going for the fake out play there because obviously it was Incineroar's first turn out. He actually does end up losing both Pokemon, but Landorus and presumably Gastrodon in the back are two pretty good Pokemon to have out right now. The one thing that Augustine does have going for him is that he will have that speed advantage, but Gastrodon is just so hard to take care of in this matchup. So now, you know, you're not going to be able to knock out the Gastrodon. And the other question is with Tyranitar, what move do you want to commit to?
Right.
A lot of Tyranitars, especially with the Choice Scarf, do have those Ice-type attacks. So maybe you need to launch that into the Landorus, maybe double up into the Landorus, because right now a Landorus, Earthquake, or a potential Z move will really just knock out either of these two Pokemon. So I think Ryota was fine with that trade because Gastrodon already is really good against both these two Pokemon, and you know you're guaranteed an Intimidate here as well.
Yeah, but you're only guaranteed the one Intimidate now. So if Excadrill is able to find some turns, it can boost itself up with Swords Dance, or just be happy to take the -1 and keep dishing out the damage as much as possible.
Yeah, so this is, I think, going to pretty much be the game-deciding turn here. So let's see. Excadrill is going to have to protect.
Just a protect coming out from Augustine's Excadrill. Tyranitar does go first with the Ice Beam. Connects with the Landorus Therian form, nowhere close. Landorus just sort of shrugging that one off as it goes for a Tectonic Rage.
Yeah, so, you know, while Special Tyranitar is able to bypass that Intimidate, it's also Special Tyranitar.
Yeah.
So it's not able to do as much damage with that Ice Beam. That Landorus takes it comfortably, even not holding Assault Vest or a Yache Berry. Gonna get that knocked out safely into that Tyranitar, going to be able to pick up the KO. And now it's a 2v1 where Excadrill once again just doesn't have enough time to really Swords Dance and win this game. So
Yeah.
I think we'll be able to see Ryota take this one unless Augustine's able to get a ton of Rock Slide flinches.
I mean, there's always the chance,
When there's
right?
Rock Slide, there's a way, right? But he's gonna need a lot right now.
Yeah, and he's going to need... Actually, I don't know. Will he have enough before Sand runs out?
Yeah, that as well. I mean, Ryota is just in a really commanding position, and we are actually not even going to see him go for the flinch chance. Maybe,
Picks up the KO with Iron Head.
yeah, so I think you hope to survive an attack from Gastron, maybe crit your Z move onto Gastron
Yeah.
afterwards, but Earth Power here is just going to pick up the knockout. So really, really commanding performance here from the defending world champion.
Yeah, Ryota Otsubo taking game 1, 2-0 over Agustin De Cicco.